morning, everybody. This is Nick Coenen from Pine Lake Camp. We have something a little bit different today. Instead of doing an activity, we're actually going to show you guys an interview I did yesterday with a good friend of mine, someone who comes to Pine Lake Camp every year and has been coming here for a long time. His name is Steve Dykstra, and he's also a very well-respected child psychologist down in the Milwaukee County area. And I just want to talk to him about how we get through all of this, that as families, this is not easy. And some of you may have questions about anxiety with your kids, or what is this isolation potentially doing to us? And I think Steve does a good job kind of walking us through that, and what are the things to watch for as warning signs. I know when the news came down yesterday of schools being closed indefinitely, that was just another kind of like punch to my stomach of like, this just keeps happening. But that's why it's important to know what these signs are, to make sure that our kids are being well cared for and loved, and that as families, we're caring for each other and our neighbors and our communities. So this is a fairly long interview. What I thought was going to be 10 minutes turned into about 20, but it's really good. And I really respect Steve, and every time I talk to him, I learn something new, and this was no exception. I walked away from this feeling like I learned something really important. So hopefully you guys find it valuable. Our schedule is going to be, we're going to keep doing this stuff every day as best we can. I'm going to work with some other people, some other staff, hopefully summer staff that have worked here or that are planning to work here this summer, and maybe even some other camps to try and broaden this thing out a little bit, because indefinitely is a long time for one camp to try and do this stuff every day. So thanks for hanging with us and sharing this stuff, and hopefully it's helpful to you and your families. But just enjoy this. If you have any questions or things you want to ask Steve, he said he would look at those comments as well below this video. So feel free to drop some stuff there too. But enjoy this video, and we love you guys, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks. All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Nick Coenen from Pine Lake Camp. I want to do something different today. We've done some activities the last couple of days, but camp fortunately has a lot of amazing friends and people who come to this place. And Steve Dykstra is one of those people that I've known for a lot of years, and usually know him as someone who's really good at watermelon rugby, and an amazing photographer, and just someone that always kind of stretches the way I think, which I've always appreciated about him. But in the real world, when he's not at camp, he's a licensed psychologist, and he's a director of the Children's Mobile Crisis Team for Milwaukee County, which makes him extremely qualified to help us talk through some of the stresses of what this could be doing to our families and to our kids. So thanks, Steve, for coming and talking with me this morning.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
This is weird. It's like a talk show, but I know you as just like a guy at the dining hall. Yeah.
Yeah, I should be wearing shorts right now.
We can sing Johnny Appleseed quick. It'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my first question, I guess, is what is this doing to us? What is it doing to our families? What is this doing in big picture to our kids?
It's disrupted our lives, and these are major disruptions. These are, human beings are very social creatures. We are designed and evolved socially and personally and spiritually to be connected to other people. Very few of us do well when we are completely cut off from people. And for many of us, we've been cut off from other people and from our routines very abruptly and in a way we would not have chosen for ourselves. That's going to put us at greater risk of depression. It's going to put us at greater risk of anxiety. If you're a person who worries too much, who's just naturally given to worrying too much, there's a lot of fertile ground for you to work in right now. If you tend to worry, your mind can get away from you right now, and I'm sure a lot of people are having that experience. It's disrupted our connections to people. I know yesterday was my first day working from home, and I missed being around people in a way that really surprised me. Even though I sort of knew it was coming, I didn't think it would hit that fast. So we have to create a new normal for ourselves. I think it's really important that we distinguish between social distancing on one hand, which is absolutely ethically and humanly required of us right now, and social isolation, which we have to do everything in our power to prevent.
When you talk about folks that are prone to worry, I'm that person. I've not been sleeping well the last couple nights, I'll admit that. But I think all of us have that somewhat level of worry for our kids.
Yeah.
The thing that makes me worry is the constant kind of upping the ante of news I receive of how this thing keeps shifting. So whenever I make a plan for myself or my family or camp, that plan gets trashed, I don't know, 3 times a day right now. I can handle that and I buffer that for my family. But what is the information we should be telling our kids, and maybe what are things maybe we shouldn't be telling our kids? Is there some level of disconnect there just to keep their anxiety down?
So I'm going to use some common comparisons. We all are familiar with the fact that kids don't know everything about the world that we do. They don't know everything about sex and reproduction that we do. They're curious. They need to know some things, but we do a good job as adults typically of gauging what's the right amount. And part of that is we watch them as we share information with them, and you get a sense from your kids that's enough for this child right now. You have to be careful about kids who you know are naturally inclined to worry. It's always a fine line. Do I provide them with less information to try to discourage their worrying? Or do I provide them with more information to try to set their worries aside? That's going to vary from person to person. There are some kids who are really going to need to dig into this and know everything they possibly can about it. And there are going to be other kids who are going to try to block it out and shield it out and not want to know about it. And I really encourage parents to be honest with themselves and with their kids about which way maybe is going to work for each child. And it may be a different answer. But I think most kids above a certain age are going to need to know enough. Why is school closed? Why aren't we visiting grandma and grandpa? Why are you telling me to wash my hands every 5 seconds? Why do we have all these strange rules now about not touching things? Why can't I go to the grocery store with you? And just explain that there's this virus that's going around. It's making some people sick. And that part of the way we take care of each other, even people we don't know, is to do our part to slow down the spread of that virus.
That's excellent. If you have a kid who ramps up in anxiety, or even maybe just long-term for us, we need to know these things anyways. Are there certain signs or things we should be watching in our kids of raised anxiety or even depression or separation from friends? What are those kind of key trigger things we should be watching?
Well, you want to watch for sadness. You want to watch for disruption in sleep. You want to notice if your kids aren't enjoying the things they've typically enjoyed before. Now, some of that may go on because kids who used to be limited to half an hour of video games a night, now we're like, all bets are off. Yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. And so it may not be fun just because they're getting so much of it. It's not special anymore. Mm-hmm. Helping our kids, I'll skip around a little bit, helping our kids maintain some kind of new routine, still getting up at a regular time. One of the things that sleep and depression and anxiety do to us is they disrupt sleep. One of the effects of that can be that you have a harder time falling asleep and staying asleep, and you may correct for that by laying in bed longer in the morning, which makes it harder to fall asleep the next day. Mm-hmm. So trying to keep some kind of a routine about that, getting up at a certain time, even though maybe you don't absolutely need to, eating meals at regular times, trying to keep some kind of a routine is very important to people's well-being. Now, for folks who are becoming more anxious and depressed, oftentimes sleep is an early marker for that. It's a sign, an earlier sign. So check with people. Hey, how are you sleeping? I'm worried about you. You don't seem to be as happy anymore. You don't seem to smile as much. Look for chances to connect those people up with things. And kids above a certain age, and it varies by different kids, benefit from having a sense of purpose. If you're going to the grocery store, and you might be checking with a neighbor or an elderly relative or a friend, hey, do you need anything from the grocery store? Because I'm going anyway, so I want to help you not have to go because you're at greater risk than me. Maybe involve your kids in that. Get them to call grandma or the neighbor to write out the list, to keep track of what everybody needs. If you're going to do that, so they have a sense of purpose, they have a sense of taking care of the people around them. I think kids benefit from that anyway. But if kids are getting really anxious and depressed, it may be necessary to reach out for some professional guidance. It may be necessary to, and I say this very advisedly, to have a limited breaking of the rules. If your sense of social distancing is nobody's coming into our house and we're not going anywhere, and you realize your kids really need to see their friends, I wouldn't pull together a sleepover of a dozen kids who are all going to go back to their homes. But, maybe one kid, and then keeping it to that one child or two children, keeping a small circle of people as a way of responding to that, because we have to keep those connections. Otherwise, this just gets too hard.
What's interesting to me is I think some families are kind of averse to video games, but I think the technology of video games and being able to actually communicate with somebody while you play something has kind of like manifested itself really well for this moment in an odd way of you get to engage with somebody yet still have the health situation totally taken care of. You're separated by houses or blocks or miles, but you still get to engage in that, which I think those social interactions, we got to really try and foster those in any way we can.
I remember I haven't played video games online in years. That was interesting. I haven't played video games online in years, but when I did, I remember one particular game I was playing with 4 guys from Finland. Right. I mean, there's a chance to be connected here. For those of you whose sons and maybe even your daughters, it's more typically boys, are very involved with video games and you're determined to keep them from playing those video games, I'm not telling you to let these kids go hog wild. Right. Set some reasonable limits. But I would also encourage you, if you've never done it, to sit with your kids while they play video games sometimes, to see what that's like and to see the interaction that goes on. It may not be what you think it is. And if you're there, that makes it more meaningful to them. This is a chance to interact with people, to have some sense of connection, to check in with each other. It's also a chance to check in with each other using all that fancy technology we have. I suspect Skype is going to be going crazy and Apple FaceTime is going to be going crazy. And those are great things. Those are great things that we can use to keep some sense of connection.
I know even our daughter's dance studio, they recently transitioned to a Zoom model where they're going to still do dance studio lessons through Zoom so that people can do this from their living rooms. And I think that's what I see camp trying to evolve to right now in this time, is how to connect with people and keep us all engaged so that we still love each other and care about each other, and we have ways to reach out to each other. So I think that's really critical.
Well, and there's a critical word that you used there. And I think I've made a very conscious, deliberate effort in my practice, in my professional practice, and I'm going to call our attention to the use of this word now. I'm deliberately using the word love more than I have before. That we shouldn't be afraid of that. Yeah. That we should say we need to love and care for each other. We need to love the people around us. Because this is in a biblical sense here, and it's something that you and I share through camp and through our faith, to recognize that, one of the words in the Bible that we translate as love is agape, and that is a kind of love you can have for someone you've never even met, a caring and a love you can have for someone you're never going to meet. One of the things that I've been saying to people is through social distancing and through all the sacrifices and disruptions we're all making right now, you have a chance to save the life of people you're never going to meet. You're never going to know for sure that you contributed, but you'll know that you contributed to the saving of lives. That when hundreds of thousands of people don't die in this country, because those are the kinds of numbers we're talking about here, you have a part in that. You and the billions of other people around the world who are making these same sacrifices have a part in that. And that we remind each other of that. I had a moment yesterday at Costco. I had to run for essentials, and there were no essentials. But I got some gas, and there were there are 4 or 5 of us standing out there pumping gas, all keeping our distance, but all talking to each other and smiling and encouraging each other, and trying to keep that sense of connection. Seek those moments out. Show get your kids to participate in those moments. I'm moving here and realizing there's this wonderful pattern that's appearing on my shirt. It's just sort of spectacular, sort of hypnotic. But to do those things, find interesting things. This is a great chance too for your kids who are curious and interested in things to really indulge that curiosity. I've been helping some people online come up with sort of questions. If all your kid really cares about is, military history, wow, this is a great opportunity to just dive into military history. If all your kid cares about is, how to make movies, this is their chance to pull out an app on their phone and make movies and really do that stuff, really do it and share it with people and share those things online and be creative and to not be cut off from the world.
For all the people that, and I'm guilty of this, I pushed it even through the camp of trying to set up schedules for your family, which I think are valuable and important. It's going to get harder and harder to stick to those and to have like this rigid structure. But if somebody has something they're just passionate about, like a kid is just like has this passion project that they want to dive into, I wonder if that would be more beneficial to them than having like structured math time, structured reading time, structured structure. Instead, just let them deep dive into something and get really invested in something. It's almost like an independent study project, which is really cool too.
Yeah, they have a chance. We can't go to extremes with anything. We have to be careful not to overstructure our kids, and we have to be careful not to understructure our kids. And we have to be honest too. If your kid has always struggled with reading or always struggled with math or something like that, you don't want to neglect those things where they fall even further behind. But if your child doesn't have particular struggles, you can spend some time on those things and then encourage your kids, as you say, to have the deep dive into some other things, some really deep creative things that they can get involved in, some informational things, and look for opportunities that I think are going to be springing up online to connect your kids with other kids. People who are really interested in these things. If your child plays an instrument and is really into an instrument, this is an opportunity for them to really get into that and indulge that and go deep into that for a while. And to do these things with our children. The time is right now for us to be watching television together, watching movies together, reading books together, reading books out loud to each other so that we're all in the same book at the same time. The kinds of things that used to be more common. And not just for the sake of nostalgia, but because it binds us together. It calls us together.
I really appreciate this time. I have one last question, and then I'm going to let you go, even though I could talk to you forever on this stuff, and I just really appreciate you. This is a question I'm probably going to ask everybody I talk to, and it's not an easy question. Is it possible to go through all of this without trauma? And are we going to be okay, Steve?
I think we're going to be okay. We're going to be different, but different doesn't mean not okay. I think one of the things to keep in mind is after people are traumatized and they have losses, some of us are going to lose people. People we know and love are going to die. You can only prepare yourself for that so much. Those things, this is going to change us. But we need to resist the idea that the way we were, the path that we were on, is the only legitimate version of ourselves, that somehow the person we become because of this, that's not really us, that this isn't the real world, the real me, this isn't the way my life was supposed to be. I think if we can embrace this, be graceful about it, I think we have a chance to come out of this just fine, not unmarked, not unscarred, but I think we have the chance to come out of this just fine.
Thank you. So I'm going to let you go, but if people have questions and stuff, is it okay if they put those in comments below this video, and we'll just try and reach out to you if we need to?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I want to teach people one really simple thing.
Yeah.
If there's somebody you're concerned about, somebody in your household, somebody you know, a neighbor, a relative, there's somebody you're concerned about, the thing to do is to approach them and to say these simple words, I'm worried about you, and then say why. I'm worried about you, because you can't get out anymore. I'm worried about you because you seem so scared. I'm worried about you. You don't seem to smile as much anymore. I'm worried about you because I don't see you as much anymore. I'm worried about you. You seem angry all the time. Whatever it is, I'm worried about you, and then express why, so that they can be more understanding that you're not saying this because you're judging them. You're not saying this because you think you've identified a flaw in them. You're saying this because you're genuinely worried about them. And if you're willing to say it, to include in there the simple statement that you love them and you care about them, and that's why you're talking to them.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, Steve, I love you guys. I love your family. And yeah, we'll get through this. I appreciate all your wisdom, and I may look you up again if this thing goes any longer. This has been really great, though. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything I can do for you or anybody else. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.